question that I had the entire time I was listening to this podcast is, what on earth motivated these people to perpetuate this hoax when it was obviously demonstrably failing our children? And maybe that was a naive question to ask, because the answer is profit. The answer is these individuals, these women, these teachers who were writing this curricula are now extremely wealthy. They're incredibly rich. I mean, one of the women is maybe rich to the tune of like $20 million rich. And the publishing company that published all this curricula is like $1 billion rich from selling all this curricula. And this curricula, you guys are gonna recognize this curricula. Anybody who's had children in school in the past 2 decades, 3 decades, will recognize the names of some of these curricula. So some of the curricula is like leveled literacy intervention. So any of the leveled reading books, that's this cueing theory curricula. Balanced literacy, that's the cueing theory curricula. All of this, reading recovery, is the cueing theory. It doesn't help children. It actually sets them further back. There's like the studies that these cueing theory proponents pretend substantiate their works shows this tiny little immediate, like, oh, if you put your child through the cueing program in first grade, at the end of first grade, it shows that it's helped. But by the end of second grade, they're far behind again because it didn't teach them to read. It just taught them to pretend to read based on these cues. But as soon as you advance to a different level, the pictures aren't there. You can't just tell what the words mean just by looking at what the painting looks like on the page. Well, the kids, it's not their fault, but the kids were just faking it. The kids were taught to fake it. And the same with the teachers. The teachers, some of them see that this doesn't work, but this is what the teachers are taught to teach their children. This is what school boards give teachers, curriculum-wise, to teach children. This is what teachers' colleges are teaching teachers to teach children, and it's all based on a lie. It's based on a lie that profits a handful of education experts and an education publishing company, and our children are harmed by it. It's anti-science. And when these women, this is the name of some of the education experts, Irene Fountas and Gay Sue Pinnell are 2 of the most famous authors. Lucy Calkins is another author. Any teacher who's listening is gonna be like, yup, I recognize those names. Parents are gonna say, oh yes, I do recognize those names. Anybody who challenges these women on this anti-science, anti-phonics, look at the picture to guess what you think the word might mean, they're just told, well, no one has a monopoly on science. Sometimes you have to just believe. And all of these women have based their curricula on that original theory invented by the woman from New Zealand, Marie Clay, and none of it is based on science. Like, this is such woo-woo stuff that our children are taught that there are first graders in our country that are given a stack of books in school and told to participate in a reading and writing workshop. Before they can read, before they can write, they're given this opportunity to create a reading nook. They're basically told to cosplay avid readers. And the teacher goes, I don't need to tell you what an avid reader is because you guys are embodying what it means to be an avid reader. But the kids can't read. They're not reading in their reading nooks. They're not reading their books. They're pretending to read. They're pretending to be readers, which might be fine in kindergarten to get a kid motivated to do phonics, but it doesn't work in real life. It doesn't work to educate a child, to teach them to read. Only phonics can do that. Only sitting down and doing the hard, boring work can do that. And if you're thinking this is so crazy that it is in almost every school system, every elementary school, you should, if you have a child in elementary school right now, you should ask your school what reading curriculum that they use. Since this podcast came out, I guess this podcast came out about 6 months ago, 8 months ago, there have been states across the country, 2 dozen states, I believe, almost a little over 2 dozen states that have passed laws or changed their curriculum standards away from this disastrous cueing theory of reading because they see the light. They see that the science says that this is absolute baloney. This is pseudoscience. It's literally snake oil, but it's harming our children. So that's what I spent almost my entire weekend doing, listening to 6+ hours of this. I highly, highly recommend that you go check it out. It's called Sold a Story, and it's by reporter Emily Hanford. She does an amazing job telling this narrative and exposing yet another institution, right? We're familiar with the CDC. We're familiar with public schools as controlled by teachers' unions, with critical race theory and revisionist history and queer theory. We're familiar with the American Academy of Pediatrics and pediatricians and the medical industry, all of these different institutions that we used to rely on. We are reorienting ourselves to understand that we can no longer rely on those institutions. They are captured, they are corrupt, they simply are not the experts that they claim to be. We are now, as parents, taking on this responsibility ourselves to research and learn and make decisions based on our best judgment and not deferring to the so-called expertise of someone else. And this is just another example of it. If it seems overwhelming, well, it is and it isn't. It's overwhelming to hear new information, but it's also a good thing. Now, you know, if your child has a problem reading, that this is probably the reason why, and a quick remedial course at home through a phonics book will probably solve the problem for you. Or if you can, just pull that kid right out of school. Hi guys, it's Liz Wheeler. Don't forget to watch my show, The Liz Wheeler Show, every night at 7 p.m. on the First TV. You can download the free First TV app, or you can visit thefirsttv.com/Liz and start watching today.